Early in his career, he was entrusted with the development of Pech National Park, wherein he has laid the foundation of what the Pech National Park is today. He has helped strengthen conservation systems during the park's formative years, which now all of us relish and enjoy. His work has extended far beyond administration. He has contributed to tiger conservation, protection of wildlife corridors, anti poaching efforts, scientific research, and restoration of endangered species. Among his notable achievements was the successful translocation of 29 hard ground swamp deer to Satpura National Park. His expertise has led to his selection as a chairman of the national team for evaluation of the management of 13 tiger reserves across India. Dr. Suhas Kumar has also received specialized conservation training in Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States, and has headed the Wildlife Extension faculty at the Wildlife Institute of India. He is also very academically oriented and has also authored a book by the name of Nature's Disciple, which is a reflection of his lifelong relationship with the natural world. Dr. Suhas Kumar can shed light not just from an administrative perspective to the group discussion topic, but also a very deep academic perspective to the issue at hand. Students, please join me in warmly welcoming our mentor, Dr. Suhas Kumar. Sir, I will hand over the mic to you. Please enlighten us about the today's topic.
Thank you, Jasa, and welcome all the participants to today's program. Uh, I will be talking to you in both Hindi and English. Probably that will be fine with you. Uh, see, you people have a mandate, and the mandate is to participate in a debate with a focus on how to restore corridor, why they are important, what is gene flow, and all that. But I think that is something which comes after a lot of understanding of the whole subject of conservation everywhere, not only in India, but how we started talking about conservation, how we became quite oriented to protect the environment and the forests and wildlife. So let's begin from the scratch. Let's go back to the times when our forefathers were living in the jungle. Our ancestors were like animals. Not long back in time, just 2 to 3 lakhs years ago, Homo sapiens used to live in caves. And then they learned to cultivate. And from there, the downfall began. As long as they were nomads, they were like any other creature on the planet, and they had a very good relationship with nature, and they used to take off from nature, but probably that what do you call, the relationship was such that very little harm used to be done then. What happened after that? When the humans settled, started cultivating, they became owners of property. They owned land, they owned crop, and then what came? The most important thing that came is greed. They wanted more and more from earth. And then slowly in Europe, what happened? From 1760 to 1840, there was industrial revolution that changed the entire relationship of human beings with their planet. And destruction started, exploitation started, everything was touched. Every corner of earth was going to be explored in coming years. And then the repercussion also became quite evident. What happened after that? So after that, when people started looking at the destruction which development or the industrialization was bringing to humanity and to all other creatures and nature itself, then they started doing some thinking about it. Some people were there in earlier times. Although leopard, whose career spanned it from almost 1890 to 1895 to 1948. He was a forester, he was a naturalist, he was an American, and he talked about the importance of land itself, how land should be treated. Land means everything which is there on the land, and how it should be treated. What the human being should be actually doing to protect land, because that is the very foundation of our life. And then he wrote a book, a Sand County Almanac, and this book influenced many world leaders. Many changes were brought in. We will discuss about that later. And then there was Rachel Carson. She was a marine scientist and a conservationist, and she wrote a book called as what do you call The Silent Spring. Probably some of you might have heard about it or read it. This is a book which started talking about the serious impact of pesticides on all life forms. And the book was so powerful that actually it changed the thinking of world leaders. And people started thinking of developing with some sense and protecting nature and the planet Earth itself. In 1948, a very unique organization was actually created, which is known as International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources. And this organization is not only the government organization, so many different countries are the members. It also includes NGOs, NGIs, scientists, what do you call the civil societies. They all are members, and it actually monitors what is happening to the earth, what is happening to the species. They have the red data book, which actually monitors the health of the species and the habitats and alerts. And they also do some conservation work in the field, guide and what do you call sensitize people how to go about protecting certain species. Uh, then in 1961, Worldwide Fund for Nature was constituted. And this is another organization which works throughout the world protecting wildlife and their habitats. And these organizations actually started building a consensus among the world leaders. And then the first ever serious thinking went into this problem of misuse of earth. And the first meeting was convened in 1972, which is called Human Environment Conference in Stockholm, Sweden. Here people started talking about all these things, that what kind of development is the best for the planet. As a result, certain documents were created. It actually became a Bible for quite some time for the entire country. The World Conservation Strategy and Sustainable Development Concept, these things started from there. Then happened the Earth Summit in 1992, which we had several Earth Summits later, and we have now the Biodiversity Convention and many conventions which talks about the climate change and conservation of biodiversity, conservation of nature, natural resources, conservation of landscapes. And the world actually started doing these things through what do you call creating protected areas, legislating on conserving wildlife and nature and forest. Then at the international level, many treaties and conventions they came into practice. For example, we have the Bonn Convention, we have the Wetland Convention, we have the CITES, which talks about the illegal trade in wildlife species, flora and fauna. And now we have several conventions and protocols for climate change mitigation. So these things happen later. In India, what happened? See, we were not very serious about conservation. Of course, there were things who protected certain reserves for their own use, protecting it from misused by others. Uh, and our scriptures talk about the importance of nature and all wild creatures. But serious efforts were never made to protect wildlife. In India, the situation was really very bad because with the advent of guns and the Britishers, the wildlife started depleting very fast. And then the vehicles also came, so access to the remote areas became very easy. And as a result, the wildlife and the forest also. The earlier policy of forest management of 1894 actually talked about exploiting the forest. It never talked about conservation. We'll talk about that later. Then, what happened in India? When the modern conservation practices started in India, the 10th meeting of the IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature, was held in 1969 in Delhi. And there, one forest officer, Mr. Kailash Sakla, presented a paper which talked about the plight of the tiger. Only 1472 tigers were there at that time, which actually people came to know later when the estimate was carried out. And the wildlife itself, what was happening to the wildlife of India. And that was so alarming that it led to banning the of the what do you call it, hunting of tigers and restriction on the hunting of what do you call other wildlife through the enactment of Wildlife Protection Act 1972. In 1973, the government created the Project Tiger, which is now called the NTCA, National Tiger Conservation Authority. So this was the beginning of the Project Tiger, and it was actually helped by many organizations like the IUCN, UNEP, WWF, and WWF also created a separate mission for India, which is called WWF India, in 1969. Then the government actually formulated a very important document which is called the National Wildlife Action Plan. This is the strategy document which talks about how to proceed for the conservation of different habitats and wildlife. And then came the PA network planning. See, you cannot just create PA anywhere. So there has to be a scientific basis for creation of protected areas, where we have to create, how big they will be, how will they be connected with each other, why that connectivity is important. I will tell you. Uh, Now, a little bit of the conservation, the National Forest Policy 1988. I told you that earlier policy of the British time actually was exploitative. But in 1988, it totally changed track. It only talked about the ecological security and continuity of all life forms. So this became the basis of the forest policy of 1988. In India, how we go about conserving wildlife. There are two parts, in situ and ex situ. In situ is the network of protected areas, where it is, uh, and what there is that is preserved as they are. Ex situ is one like the germ plant, the zoos, the botanical garden. These are the ex situ conservation, gene banks. So these are the ex situ conservation areas. Now I will just elaborate on the point of in situ conservation strategy, which is enshrined in the International Conservation Treaty. There are some changes. So the revised version was published. First one was, I think, 2012, and after that, another came in 2017. So it talks about creating a network of protected area covering at least 5.74% of the country's geographical area. This is important because, see, uh, our the country is extremely forest dependent. People living in this country, most of the villagers, heavily depend on the natural resources. and therefore we cannot have very big or large protected areas, as you have Kruger National Park, which is 20,000 square kilometers. So we can't afford to make protected areas that big. So we decided to at least have 5.74% of the protected areas under uh, protected area network. Identify and safeguard the corridor linking these areas. See, when you have small PAs and you have multiple land users outside, because outside the protected area you have crop fields, you have factories, you have villages, you have towns, everything. So what is happening? We are creating island. If these areas are not connected with each other through intervening forest and some natural structures like what do you call the riparian vegetation, whatever, and it is undisturbed, which allow the connectivity between two small protected areas, they will become island. And in the island, the survival of any species is very, the chances are very bleak. This is a scientifically proven fact. In island, because the gene exchange doesn't take place, the species have ultimately go extinct. So this was a very important thinking that small protected areas scattered in different biogeographical zones. That is very important. Biogeographical zones actually are assemblages of different types of habitat, climate, soil formations, and geography. And there the species assemblage is also different. So you have to have at least representation of all the biogeographic zones in those areas. So we started doing that. And the third very important aspect of the National Wildlife Action Plan was without people's participation, without their support, wildlife conservation cannot survive in a country like India. So these are the two documents which I was talking about. The National Wildlife Action Plan 2002-16. The first one was in 1983, the second in 2002-16, and the third was created in 2017. It is up to 2031. And then we have the Wildlife Protected Area Network Planning. This is a very important document. It led to the revision of the biogeographic zones of the country, and this is the map of the zones. It starts with the Himalayas, goes to the deserts and Western Ghats, Deccan Peninsula, coasts, northeastern Brahmaputra Valley, and islands. So you have 10 different zones, but these zones are divided into many provinces. Like we fall in the central Deccan Peninsula. Now, let me tell you what is the latest situation of national parks and sanctuaries which we have created under the Protected Area Network. So, national park, there are 106 national park, 574 sanctuaries, 145 conservation reserves, 309 community reserves, total protected area 1,134, and the area at present is 5.69% of the total geographic area, which is slightly less than the actual target which we have to achieve. Uh, the premises was that if we can achieve 5.74, it will it will protect the ecosystems in a better way, and we will be ecologically secure. I don't know how scientific it is, but this is what was actually written in the plan. Based on the National Wildlife Action Plan from 2023 to 2043, we have to actually implement the State Wildlife Action Plan, which was actually government had the government approval in 2024. So let's see what happens in this. I was the chairman of this committee when we were preparing it. We had a very large consultation with different stakeholders. So now you must be confused. I don't know how many people do know the what the provisions of the Wildlife Act is. What are these national parks, sanctuary, conservation reserve, community reserves, uh, and is the entire tiger reserve is a protected area or not? Anybody can tell me whether they are aware of this. If they are, then I will move on. Do they know why these different types of categories are there? No answer. Unmute yourself and just tell me. See, the Wildlife Protection Act has defined what is a protected area, what are included in that. National park is the highest category of a protected area. Is a highly protected area where nothing is allowed, not even a single what do you call settlement or village or anything that is not allowed there. No grazing. Sanctuary is a place where, with the consent and the approval of the chief wildlife warden, local people can graze their cattle in certain defined areas, and villages may continue inside. After a thorough assessment of the situation, certain villages may be allowed to continue within the sanctuary. So this is the basic difference between national park and the sanctuary. Conservation reserves and community reserves. What are these? Conservation reserve is a protected area category which is actually on a government land. If an area is really rich in wildlife or has a endemic or some kind of vegetation itself, so then the government can declare that area as a conservation reserve. There also people's participation is required, but community reserve is actually on the community land proposed by the communities, and they have a lot of say in the management of this. The restrictive provisions of a national park sanctuaries are not there in conservation reserves and community reserves. Uh, then, when we come to the tiger reserve has two parts. One is the core area, the sanctum sanctorum, where you don't have any disturbance. You can't allow anything there which is detrimental to wildlife or the habitat. But the buffer is a multiple use area. You have villages, you have revenue land, you have everything there. So ideally, it should not be a sanctuary, or any PA. So it is a multiple use area. So the law doesn't operate there. The same law which is for the core doesn't operate in the buffer. So this is deliberately done because unless people are allowed to still use the area in some way, benefit from it, probably without their support, the parks won't continue in the long run. So this is one thing. And then you have other legal restrictions like ecosystem zone. In MP, most of the buffer area is included in the ecosystem zone, which has certain restriction on certain activity like mining and what do you call, where the hotels can come, where they can't. Something like that. Whatever is banned in that ecosystem zone notification, that remains banned in the buffer. See, now, before I delve into the details of the corridors, I want to tell you about habitats. Actually, the problem with this presentation is I can't interact with you. I can't ask you a question and you don't reply to me, so that actually restricts my presentation. See, I just wanted to ask you, what do you understand by habitat? What is a habitat? Unless you understand the habitat, you cannot understand the importance of corridors or the animals living in there. Anybody can
Could you
actually
please
reply.
open your mic and just give a broad guess of what you understand of the word habitat?
What is a habitat?
Sir, habitat is a natural surrounding which an animal adapts to live its surroundings.
A place where the animals live comfortably, isn't it? And performs their life functions is a habitat, isn't it? Even our hair is a habitat for lice, isn't it? So where the an organism lives, that is the habitat. And what it does in the habitat is called niche. है ना? And how it is related with other organisms living there is also defined in the niche itself. The sea, for example, a frog's niche is the insect predation. It helps control the insect population, and it is also related to snakes and other animals which eat those frogs. So that is the function of that species. That is a predator. It is a prey. It is a population controller. So that is the niche. So this is important to understand that what is the niche and what is the habitat. The habitat is the physical place where an organism lives, while niche is the role or functions that the organism plays in the ecosystem, its profession. The habitat is about where, niche is about how the species survive and interact with other species. So this is the definition of habitat and niche. Now the very interesting part is, what is a habitat? You just read this, I will tell you also, and then when I show you the photographs, you will really comprehend what I am going to tell you. Larger units, microhabitats, large units of habitat, for example, the forest or the woodlands, scrublands. Scrubland is a place where you have small, spiny, thorny, uh, sparse forest and grassland, rocky lands with sparse vegetation. Most of these habitats are actually listed in the list of wasteland, but they are actually unique habitats which should be protected. Grasslands. Grasslands are all gone. Most of the community grasslands have also been distributed as pattas. Wetlands, they are habitats of different kinds, swamps, ocean, they're all unique habitat. Deserts, mangroves, islands, these are all bigger habitats which have a unique assemblage of species, unique ecosystems which perform various ecological functions and provide so many ecological services. And then you have the special and unique habitat. They're not very large, and there are of two types. One is formed through the upheavals, geological upheavals, geomorphic changes, and the other is biological. The geomorphic structures are cliffs, canyons, gorges, ravines, overhangs, sand dunes, mud flats, inland sand dunes, sandbars, island, caves, dens, crevices, talus. I will explain this with photos so we'll understand what is that. Salt licks, wallows, they're also habitats. Biological habitats are snags. Then I will explain all these things, don't worry about it. Old growth forest, keystone trees, down logs, humus, leaf litter, pools and lakes, drawdown areas, riparian vegetation, magic sites, mangroves, etc. And then there are habitats which are man-made. We create habitat. You just keep an abandoned vehicle outside, you don't use it, and you will find so many animals, insects, everyone is living there. Okay, so you have recess in the home, you have a habitat for birds or say the squirrels. So habitat are different kinds, human induced. Certain crops, for example, sugar cane, which provides through cover throughout the year. For example, in Piliwit and Durva, it's a big problem because the animals go and breed there, and there is conflict with people. Human death and animal death both occur. So that is another kind of habitat, man-made habitat. Most crops provide some foraging habitat for herbivores. Recesses, false ceilings, ventilators, window ledges, kitchen garden, orchard, everything is habitat. What is the threat to the habitats? The first threat is that the intact landscapes, the wild habitats are all gone because humans are developing. So when we develop, we destroy. So destruction has actually fragmented the habitat for development infrastructure, expansion of cities, and also through natural phenomenon, unprecedented flood, landslides. They also destroy fragment habitat, degradation by overuse, human livestock and wild animals, recurrent hot season fires, invasive species, unpalatable species, changes in the vegetation composition, nutrient microflora. Now the climate change is one of the major driver of degradation of habitats and loss of habitat. Pollution of habitat that we do. We actually uh, put fly ash, debris, garbage, effluent, sewage, poison, toxin, air and water pollution all make habitat uninhabitable. Habitat may be there, the forest is there, but nobody can live there because everything is toxic. Excessive human presence. Disturbance actually creates a serious problem. For example, a study recently done by the CCMB, the Center for Molecular Biology, Hyderabad, uh, they found that excessive tourism uh, actually releases cortisol, a hormone in the body of tigers which depresses its reproductive abilities. So this is something which is not visible, but when you study it in detail, you come to know about it. Now I will show you the picture. You will have a very clear idea what are the micro habitats and what are the special habitats. This is the woodland, the forest. This is the grassland. All these areas are you have unique animals adapted to that kind of habitat. Certain animals require edges, forest and grassland. Some animals, insects, they will require the forest and wetland or the grassland or wetland. So animals are adapted to different types of ecotones. And then these are the swamp deers from the Tarai area. This is a wetland. Deserts. This is unique habitat. People think that there is nothing here, but you will be surprised. There are so many animals and birds. They live in the desert, and most of them actually hide under the sand. Their burrows are inside, and the temperature is low, and they can survive there. So it is not just sand dune. It is a habitat which lot of animals and birds there. Cold desert, the other kind of desert which you find in Ladakh. So you have animals there, so many different kinds of animals survive in that harsh habitat. And you have coastal marine island habitats. And then you see what happens. The soil itself, not the surface of the soil, but below the soil, you have a unique habitat. The underground habitat, the same as the sand dunes. Under inside, you have so many things, so many animals, termites, hedgehog, foxes, what do you call porcupine, certain owls also, the grass owls not found in MP, the foxes. They all live inside. So many insects and the reptiles, they reside there, and you don't. You probably know that to create 1 inch of soil, how many years does it take? From 500 to 1000 years for nature to create it from rocks and debris, the weathering and all that happens, and the rocks break down and create soil. But it takes only a few seconds or minutes to wash off that soil. You just imagine the importance of soil and the need to protect the soil. Special and unique habitat, geomorphic habitat. You know? So this is the cliff, and you see in the inset, you see here the vulture sitting there. So there's so many reptiles, so many other bird species. They utilize such cliffs. So what happens when you do the tourism rappelling and rock climbing, all that? You don't bother about these things. You do it anywhere. So when you plan for such activity, you should first survey the area, find out which is the safest place where we can do the rappelling and all, or the rock climbing. They should be doing that there. So you have to take care of different types of habitat. This is an overhang, is a natural formation. This is also a resting place for many animals. And this is a talus. A talus is actually assemblage of boulders. You must have seen this. If you go to Panna, there is a place called Baliya Seha. You can see huge boulders one upon another. There are so many terrains inside. And the tigers and the bears both live there. So here, these taluses with the hollows and the tunnels inside, they create a unique habitat. And these are the crevices in the cliff. And you see the monitor lizard having rest there. It may be his habitat. Ravines. You don't think that ravine may be a habitat? Most of us will not even imagine that this barren land can provide habitats. You see the parakeets there and the bee eaters. They also actually they dig the holes and the parakeets later take over. They actually utilize holes created by others. There are many species which do this, utilizing others' holes. And this is the what do you call what do you call what is this bird? Bonelli's eagles. A pair of Bonelli eagle is actually preparing a nest to lay eggs. These are the sandbars. The sandbars are the assemblage of sand in a river, and they provide lot of uh, habitat for the birds to nest, for the bird to rest, for the reptiles to rest, to turtles to breed, to lay eggs. So these are the things which happen there on the sandbar. The islands also do the same thing. And you have mesic site. A mesic site is a site when you are traveling or moving through a very dry habitat, very totally dry, and you go a few, say, 100 feet down somewhere where there is an opportunity to go, and you find a moist site, wet site, that is the basic habitat. So the vegetation, the assemblage of species is entirely different what you find on the top. So this is a unique habitat. It is a very biodiverse area, and this is the most important habitat, riparian habitat. What is a riparian and what is a riverine habitat? You must understand the difference. A riverine is inside the river. A riverine habitat is habitat for many animals and reptiles, uh, insects. But a riparian habitat is habitat for most terrestrial animals. Certain animals are obligate to this habitat. For example, the giant squirrel, Nilgiri langur, the land-tailed macaque, they actually occupy such habitats only. So this is not only a habitat. This doesn't only provide thermal cover. It actually is a very important part of corridors between two areas. So the protecting riparian vegetation should be the prime focus of corridor restoration, because you can destroy everything. If you can restore the riparian habitats, you have the corridor where you can't even imagine corridor today. So the corridor plans should actually focus on these areas. Drawdown areas, the areas created by man. In fact, drawdown area is the area from where the water recedes when you create a dam. In the summer season, the water recedes, but it provides a unique habitat for wild animals. Most of the animal congregate here. You go to Pech, you will find it. You go to Satpura, Madai, you will see this biological unique habitats. You see, there is a hole in a dead tree, and here is also a hole made by this bird, which is a what do you call the coppersmith. So coppersmith actually is capable of making a hole in a dead tree and breed there, lay eggs. Uh, Here, this is a hollow. See how the hollows are created in the tree. The hollows are created by natural actions. For example, there is a cut in the tree trunk, and the fungus grows there. It actually dissolves the lignin and all that, and then you have the termites. They make the hole bigger, and then it becomes a habitat for other species, birds, and the insects. They occupy these holes, the dead trees or in a living tree. Anywhere this can happen. This is a dead tree, so we will call it snag. The upper two pictures are of snags, and these two pictures are of den trees. A living tree which has hollows. So here you will find bird, and the hollow like this actually is a habitat or a breeding place for many large animals like jackals, even hyenas, leopards also, cats. So these are the habitats which need to be protected. Unfortunately, what is happening? All the old growth trees which provide the natural dens, they are being cut down in the name of development, which I don't think is the right thing to do. We should actually protect all the old growth trees. They are unique habitats and they must be protected. As I said, the ecotone, the juxtaposition and interspersonal habitat actually give rise to a good amount of biodiversity. If you don't have such kind of habitat, then the biodiversity will go down. If you protect areas very jealously, probably you will lose biodiversity also. So ecotones are very important. You see, here you have the ideal situation. You have the woodland, you have the wetland, and then you have the grassland. So here you will find a species of all three different habitats. Now, how much time I have?
So it's generally an hour, but you can take more.
Okay.
There's no time foundation, sir. Everybody is most happy to listen to you, sir.
Okay, okay, let's go. Now we will talk about the importance of genetic exchange between distinct population of organisms. It is critical for the long-term survival of those species. Without genetic exchange, uh, we don't have a chance for animals to survive. No species can survive if it has undergone a serious inbreeding in islands and there is a genetic depression in the population, it's very difficult for them to survive in the long run. They will vanish. Because what happens when you inbreed, you have an assemblage of the same genes. And if mutations have taken place, the bad mutations are accumulating in the body, the animal is already compromised. It doesn't have a future at all. So, in situation like India, where we have small protected areas, connectivity, corridors are very, very important. As I said, Indian PAs are like island, hence special species therein are prone to extinction. Dispersal areas and corridors are necessary to maintain genetic continuity. Without that, the gene will not flow. See, there are two ways in which the gene flows when the habitats are connected. It is not that all the animals travel long or all the birds they go far away from their place and interact with other bird species. It doesn't happen like that. What happens? Certain species, like the tiger's habit is it breeds at a place, it grows up, then it has to find a different habitat. It has to move out and locate a suitable habitat where it can establish itself and produce progenies. So this is a movement from one place to another. Then there are large animals like elephants. They migrate. They migrate. What is the difference in movement and between movement and migration? Movement is going away, staying somewhere. And migration is seasonal pattern of going away, utilizing that habitat and coming back to the original place. This is migration. The elephants used to do this, but now with so much of development infrastructure in their habitat, they are long-ranging species, 100, 200 kilometers is nothing for them. When they see that the habitat is degrading, they move to a better habitat, a traditional habitat, where they stay for some time, utilize the resources, come back, give that habitat the time to improve again. So this is cyclic pattern is called migration. So tiger movement and elephant movement are entirely different. And there are many species, smaller animals, they don't travel far away. So how the genetic exchange will take place between two populations? If there is a continuity of habitat, the animals can interact with each other in the adjacent habitat. That animal will interact with the other in a contiguous habitat. So the gene flows like that from one area to another. Huh? Birds that fly to long distances, they actually take the genes to other areas. But the birds which are localized, they breed with other species, with the other counterpart in the adjacent habitat, and that breeds with other. So the genetic exchange takes place. So there are two ways in which this is taking place. Now, the corridors provide both functions. The corridor means continuity of habitat. If the corridors are there, both the things are happening. Elephants are moving, migrating, tigers are moving, and the animals, other animals have a chance to breed in the adjacent habitat and the gene flows to other habitats. So this is important to have corridors in a situation like our country where our parks are very small. The average size of Indian PA today is 206 square kilometers. So just imagine one national park like Kruger is 20,000 square kilometers, and we have the average size is 200 square kilometers. So these are islands, these are vulnerable, and the eh, chances of extinction of species is very high. We have seen this happening. We have seen this happening in Panna. We have seen this happening in Sariska. So connectivity is important. There are many populations which are small, which have lost connectivity, but if somehow a tiger travels to that place, it can actually rescue that population by providing genes which put some vigor in that population. So this is called rescue effect. NTCA Act mandates, writing an indicative corridor plan. Now this is a very, I don't think it is something very good thing to say indicative corridor plan. The problem is the original idea, which they had probably, was that we have to protect only the forest. Unfortunately, it is not only the forest which needs to be protected. The other land uses are to be streamlined to allow that function of the corridor, allowing risk-free movement to animals. So that is not happening. So indicative means what? If you really are serious to protect corridor, you will have to have some kind of mechanism to ensure that not only the forest, intervening forest, but the other land uses are compatible or made compatible. For example, outside the protected area, as I said, so many different development agencies are working. The infrastructure development like roads, building, canals, railway lines, everything is done by other departments. They don't have any stake in wildlife conservation. We have never told them, we have never actually compelled them to think that this is important. You have to create certain infrastructure in a way that the passages are allowed. The animals can move from one area to another. There is a manual created by the Wildlife Institute of India, which actually gives the design for different kinds of wildlife crossovers. But it is rarely implemented. Now it has started in India. This is a very good thing. We will see that. We will see the pictures of those structures in India. Uh, so indicative is actually not enough. It has to have some teeth in it. So now these are the questions which you people have been you will be asking yourself. Should the 32 major tiger corridors identified by the Wildlife Institute of India be granted statutory certification under Section 38V of the WPA with binding land use restriction, Section 29 equivalent protection from diversion? Now this is a very tricky question, very tricky in the sense that the present development, what do you call, mindset is not ecologically at stake at all. They want to develop, they want to build roads because that will lead to development. But at what cost? Nobody is doing that cost benefit analysis. Eh? What a dam will do. See, whatever we are making has a very short lifespan in the current times. Earlier, things were made and they still exist today. But now, what you are making is actually going down in few years, even few months. So, what will happen with these, what do you call, the bridges and the roads, which actually runs through the corridors without giving any space for the wildlife to cross over? What is going to happen? So I don't think that there can be a blanket ban on all the activities. The first thing will be extremely politically incorrect, and it will not be implemented at all, even if the government wants it, even if there is a law. I will give you example. Between Ranthambore and Mukundra Hills Tiger Reserve, which was without tigers some years ago when it was created, now they have introduced certain tigers. Now there is a possibility of connectivity between Ranthambore and Mukundra Hills. What is plaguing it? Huge, what do you call the mining for limestone, for the sandstone, even marble in the entire corridor. Despite the fact that a new sanctuary was created to facilitate movement of tigers as a stepping stone habitat, but unless the mining is stopped, no tiger is going to travel through that park because the mines use what do you call the dynamites, and the sound and vibrations they will deter any animal from crossing that area. So unless that is restricted, nothing happens there. Between Sariska and Ranthambore, you don't have any corridor. Kela Devi used to have tigers. They don't. Now there is no tiger. So why it is so? One has to ask because it's a contiguous habitat. What has happened? You can restore Kela Devi corridor if there is some wish, something has gone wrong there. It can be restored, but you can't restore Sariskar and Tambor corridor. It is already gone. So then the only option is to translocate animals, relocate, reintroduce, restock tigers, and give them the right atmosphere to breed. Then only it will succeed. Otherwise, even bringing tigers to habitat without any preparation, without prey base, without protection is not going to work. NTCA has recently created a protocol for such interstate relocations, uh, but a lot of work has to be done for that on the ground to allow this kind of relocation works. The last point, I think, is correct. Can a national tiger corridor mission? See, it can't be outside the project tiger. It has to be under the NTCA. What this may be a unit of NTCA, which and the legal provisions will have to be made that in all such infrastructure projects, the retrofitting of old structures and green infrastructure in new projects is mandated by law and it is strictly followed. This can be done. But in the other areas, as I said, there are certain corridors which can be revived with some amount of legal action and strict vigilance. But when the government is willing to do it, it can happen. The will of the government is very important. The political will is the crux of this answer to these questions. We have talked about it, fragmented. As I said, you understand what happens in the island. Uh, there is a theory of metapopulations in the scientific world. A metapopulation constitutes, is made when two, three, or more different breeding areas are there for certain species. Okay, so but they are isolated. They are not contiguous, but they in between there are different kinds of habitat, different types of land uses. If there is some kind of connectivity, then the chances of gene flow is there, and they together they form a metapopulation. If the corridor remains intact in all the different areas, then that population, that metapopulation has a chance to survive for a very long time. But if, like, I will show you through the photographs, these are the small populations in a landscape. You have the multiple use area, you have forest, you have other infrastructure projects and villages and factories and everything inside. But still, you have some connectivity, you have maintained the corridors, then the small population is likely to survive for a long run. Now, what happens in certain areas, the government has created the, what do you call, the blue one is the stepping stone habitats, certain small sanctuaries where the tiger can find refuge and food when they are traveling from one source habitat to another. So this is a what do you call, a practice which is being followed right now. But the problem is, uh, with the pressure on the forest and the lack of political will, what we are doing, uh, we are creating tiger reserves which, on the face of it, look extremely vulnerable, unsustainable. Now, see, this is Nagzira Navegaon Tiger Reserve. Now, this is the core area consisting of so many different sanctuaries, and this is Navegaon Sanctuary and National Park. And in between, you have villages, township, land, different land uses, fields, everything. And this is a small, what you call, green patch on the top which connects the two. And you have these small areas through which the tigers can come and go. So this is a, what you call, very peculiar situation. This, I think such areas, for example, Bore has a very small core area. It actually may serve as a stepping stone habitat, but not as a full-fledged, what you call, tiger reserve, because the area is small and is surrounded by many, many villages. So this is the problem of planning, constraint of land use, which is actually making tiger conservation a little difficult. There are many tigers. There are five, six. I know we don't have tigers in some areas. Now the tigers have been taken, relocated, uh, but their survival depends on how this is managed. Bandipur, sorry, the Simply Pal Tigers are doing good work in this, and hopefully they will actually succeed in this. Now this is the Kanha National Tiger Reserve. You see the dots, the all red dots are the villages, and this is the Kisili. The Kisili is the gate, entry gate, and this is Mukki, which is another gate. And you see the green dots, they're all hotels. And this is all forested areas interspersed with forest. And you have the hotels here. Now in the Khatia area where near Kisli, Khatia entry gate, you have so many villages already. And now a large number of new hotels have come up, making it difficult for the tigers to cross over to the corridor to paint. In Mukki also, slowly the situation is changing, but still some connectivity is there. I will show you the map of the corridor. You see, this is the Kana Tiger Reserve, and here you have this corridor. Here it goes to Gondia and to Nagzira, and here through this patch it goes Balaghat and all. It goes to Pace Tiger Reserve. So it is very difficult at certain locations. There are weak links. There are many villages where the forest is degraded, forest is almost gone. So there is a plan also. You will be surprised that the MP government had actually created a indicative plan for the corridor. We have identified 43 weak link villages where the what do you call, forest has degraded, which needs restoration. And the most important problem there was the expansion of the National Highway 7, which is now called National Highway 44. We had to actually wait for a very long time to convince the government that underpasses are very, very important dispatch. And you will be surprised that the underpasses are really working very fine now. Not only the tigers, but many other animals are crossing over using these underpasses. So this is the map of some of the tiger reserves of Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh. This is Kana, this is Bandhavgarh, this is Chanakbad. These are these are just indicative corridors where the actual connectivity is very poor. The tigers still cross that. The tiger doesn't always need a forested landscape to move. They can move using the nala beds, using the riparian vegetation, using the cover of the night through the what do you call very dense areas. They can travel still. They go to Gujarat from Ratapani Sanctuary. This is really very encouraging. But we have to continue using all the riparian vegetation in the corridor. This will really boost up the corridor function very much until we do something more to what do you call reforest the weak links along with the people of those areas and convincing the infrastructure project to build only greener structures in the corridors. See, this what happens if you don't have the underpasses or the overpasses. So this happens most of the time. These are not reported even. Many animals die on the road. Small birds also die. Reptiles, mammals, everything goes under the wheels. This is a very rare species. This is a Eurasian otter, and this was found in Nanpur long back. Now we know that Satpura has Eurasian otter too, so this is very encouraging. But to protect them, we have to do something for them. So this happens on the railway tracks. Now we have technology to help locate elephants and alert the railways, but it has to be further strengthened. We have a very bad patch here in MP, Budni, what do you call what do you call mid ghat area where there is a tunnel and there is a bend, and most of the time animals die there. Tigers die there, leopards die there, cheetah die there, and the railway. We have been requesting the railways to please slow down the trains there, but they have their own mandate. So till now, nothing has happened. So we must develop. There is no problem in developing. But we must also consider what is sustainable, what is ecologically sound, how we can achieve that. This should be our goal. I'm not saying that stop all development, but develop ecologically, develop sustainably. So these are the examples from the world. The world started long back. We have started recently. They have these underpasses and overbridges and all that. Wild animals. This is Kenya. This is South Africa. This is I don't know Denmark. Maybe I will show you the another from. This is Netherlands. This is Alberta, Canada. It's a long back. Many years ago they did it. This is China. This is Malaysia Viaduct. So we can do certain things which can actually maintain the connectivity, maintain the movement areas for animals, and we can still help wildlife and habitat to survive. This is the very good thing which has happened in India after a very long battle. This is the NH44 underpass. You see the underpass. I will show you what happens under it. So this is the underpass, and this is what happens now. The underpass has allowed animals to move from one area to another. See, this is the summary. Can you read the message? Can you read the message what the tiger is saying to the tigress?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is happening now. We have taken our city Bhopal into the habitat of tigers. So we have tigers in our town. Actually, we are in their home, but we say the tigers have come to the city. So unless we think seriously that what kind of development will allow all life forms to survive, the earth to function properly, we will face the vagaries of climate change and die off very early than it should have been. So thank you so much. This is what I wanted to tell you. If you have a question, I'm there. क्यों जाता
Children,
है?
children are a bit hesitant to ask, sir.
No,
They
no.
usually
See,
they tend to
I
open
am
up a bit
basically a
later.
teacher. I'm a teacher. You are my students. I have taught at Wildlife Institute of India for a very long time. So don't worry. I'm just a teacher. You can ask anything you like. Ask anything about wildlife.
Uh, Rima
Yes.
Johan, please ask your question. Unmute your mic and ask your question.
Pardon?
Sir, Rima Chauhan has raised her hand in the meeting. So I'm
Okay.
just requesting that she can put on her mic and ask you a question, whatever is in her mind.
I should put what? I should.
No, no, not you, sir. Not you. Rima is asking questions, sir.
Rima Chauhan, please go ahead. हेलो रीमा माइक ऑफ है उनका चलिए जहाँ साहब आपका कुछ क्वेश्चन हो तो पूछ लीजिए आप
So I have
Sir,
taken
I have one small question, sir. Should we be looking at creating more protected areas as stepping stones in corridors? Say the Pech Kanha corridor is one of the most important corridors in the central Indian landscape, and Sonewani lies right within it, sir. Which has perhaps more than 20 tigers reported from there itself. An outside protected area. Are we not leaving it to the perils of violators? Should we not take proactive steps कि इनको भी हम टाइगर
हाँ
रिजर्व या कहीं भी या
नहीं
कम्युनिटी रिजर्व
देखिए
में putting forward?
आइडियली व्हाट यू आर सेइंग इज राइट लेकिन क्या हो रहा है कि द गवर्नमेंट mostly is not really interested in creating more national parks and sanctuaries. They may create a conservation or community reserve, but not beyond that. This is the situation. So we may think the ideal situation is that you should have more and more PAs, and stepping stone habitats, and all that. But just to create a stepping stone habitat, we can even create a community reserve or the conservation
That should
reserve
be enough.
even adjacent. Otherwise, if we will aim for national park, probably we will not get it. So, we could not get the Omkareshwar National Park notified till now,
Yes.
despite that there is a commitment by the NVDA and the government to the Supreme Court that we will notify this.
sir, there
And
is
if I am not mistaken, sir, it has almost 600 kilometers of inviolate area.
Yeah, 645 square kilometers.
645 square kilometers.
There were three units, national park and two sanctuaries,
Sure.
and two conservation reserves. So total area is 645. And we actually curtailed it. The original area was more than 700 square kilometers. The ministers wanted that the area should not have any forest village, so we curtailed the forest village. Then the NVDA said, no, we want all the broad on areas. So you just take the terrestrial part and leave the other areas. So that was also taken out.
Right.
So there is no difficulty in establishing that national park today.
Sir, we will encourage the students that in their group discussion they will pass resolutions and make request to the government uh, to take up these steps to protect it.
देखिए वैसे वातावरण तो काफी ब्लीक लगता है मगर फिर भी अपना भोग नहीं छोड़ना चाहिए धीरे धीरे बहुत सारी चीजें सोचते थे नहीं होगा जैसे राता पानी के बारे में ऐसा लगने लगा था कि एक टाइगर रिजर्व तो बनने से रहा लेकिन ऐसी कुछ चेंजेस हुए कि टाइगर रिजर्व बन गया तो होपफुल तो हमेशा रहना चाहिए
sir, Rima Chauhan has asked a question
From
in
a
chat.
student.
The question is, if tigers are apex predators, how does protecting them help conserve the entire forest ecosystem?
हाँ बहुत आसान बात है ये एपेक्स प्रेडेटर होने से क्या होता है एपेक्स प्रेडेटर है वो ठीक है ना तो उसका प्रे बेस तो बड़ा डिफरेंट है बाकी और दूसरी बायोडाइवर्सिटी तो है ना वहाँ जहाँ हम टाइगर को बचा रहे हैं वी आर एक्चुअली कंजर्विंग द इंटायर इकोसिस्टम विच डजंट ओनली constitute made of mammals which is the prey of the tiger there are so many things which is driving the ecosystem I can make another presentation sometime if you want for the students that how the nature works how the small creatures actually drive the ecosystems. They will be surprised to see that small, what do you call the what do you call the dung beetle or a small wasp, what they do to run the system, how what the butterflies do. So when you actually protect the tiger, what you are doing? You are protecting the entire ecosystem. And when you protect the ecosystem, you protect all creatures which actually perform so many different ecological functions, which is essential for continuity of life. For example, pollination. For example, dispersal. I will just give you one example. You go to, I will give you example from outside Africa. There is a what do you call hazel, what do you call Brazil nut tree. It's a very 200 feet tall tree with a huge fruit like this. Uh, and the flowers are such that only a particular species of wasp can enter that and pollinate the flowers. And that bees, they reproduce only if a particular the male brings scent from a particular orchid which grows in that area. They sit on the what do you call the male flower, they bring the scent, okay, and then the female mates, and then she visits the flowers again, the female goes, and then it enters the flower and pollinate, and then the brazil nut fruits are formed, and it is very, very hard, and inside the seeds are edible. There is just one animal in the entire ecosystem which performs that function of breaking that huge ball of rock-like ball. This is agouti. And then what the rodents do, they eat some and they travel along and they hide those seeds. What happens? They forget certain seeds and they become fragile trees. So it is not that the tiger and the mammals constitute the whole thing. It is not that they are running the system. So many other things which are preserved along with the tiger, they are actually doing the job. So it is very important to save tiger because the apex predator, and it is a charismatic, it's a flagship species. People actually are attracted. They understand that okay, tiger saving is good, and in that guise, we actually save everything. So that is the thing.
Viraj, one more child was asking question if you know.
Shreyansh Rai also wants to ask a question, sir. Shreyansh, I
Shreyas, go
would
ahead.
encourage you
Go
to
ahead.
ask your question directly to sir instead of referring it in the chat.
पूछो बेटा पूछो हाँ माइक है
Sir, should development always require sacrifice?
No, no, no. What is development? Just define development. You have hit the nail on my head, and I will answer you. So, just define development, then I will answer your question. What is development?
Sir,
When you will understand what development is, then you will understand what I am going to answer. Hello, कहाँ गायब हो गए? हाँ, सुनो, बिना समय नष्ट किए बता दूं कि डेवलपमेंट का माने क्या है. डेवलपमेंट में हम करते क्या है? अर्थ के जो रिसोर्सेज हैं उसको इस तरीके से उपयोग करना है जिससे कि हमारी आवश्यकता की
श्रेयांश आप म्यूट कर लो बेटा आप म्यूट सर प्लीज
बोलूं.
हाँ जी जी सर
डेवलपमेंट में क्या करते हैं हम? अर्थ के जो रिसोर्सेज हैं उसको यूज करते हैं. तो ऐसे यूज करें. डेवलपमेंट की परिभाषा में है कि अर्थ के रिसोर्सेज को ऐसे यूज करें जिससे कि हमारी आवश्यकताओं की पूर्ति तो हो और साथ में आने वाले पीढ़ियों की आवश्यकताओं की पूर्ति तो हो. हम ये बेसिक फंडामेंटल जो पॉइंट है उसको भूल गए, वो हम नहीं कर रहे हैं. सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट लाया गया था एक वर्ड इसी वजह से. सस्टेनेबल, व्हाट इज सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट? सस्टेनेबल मीन्स कि आप यही कीजिए कि आप इतना ही लीजिए पृथ्वी से, इतना ही उसको छेड़िए जिससे कि आपकी आवश्यकता तो हो जाए और साथ में उसकी जो एबिलिटी है आने वाली पीढ़ियों को भी वही सब सुविधाएं देने का वो बनी रहे. ये हम भूल चुके. हम सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट नहीं कर रहे हैं. हम जो आज डेवलपमेंट कर रहे हैं वो इकोलॉजिकली अनसाउंड है, वो सस्टेनेबल नहीं है. रेटरिक बहुत है, भाषण बहुत है, वर्कशॉप सेमिनार बहुत हैं, आप देखिए, आप ढूंढिए गूगल में सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट में कितने वर्कशॉप और भाषण हुए। वास्तव में क्या हो रहा है? सस्टेनेबल तब होगा जब हम ये सारी चीजें करेंगे कि हम उतना ही निकालें, उतना ही करें जिससे कि नुकसान ना हो इस पृथ्वी के पर्यावरण का, इस पृथ्वी के इकोसिस्टम्स का। तभी तक वो डेवलपमेंट सही है। उसके बाद सेक्रीफाइस क्या है डेवलपमेंट का? आपका क्या डेवलपमेंट है? एग्जाम्पल दूं, ये डैम से क्या होता है? बड़े बड़े डैम से छोटे छोटे डैम बनाएं तो आपको जो फायदा होगा वो कहीं आप उसको इमेजिन नहीं कर सकते, नहीं बनवाना चाहते क्योंकि वहां पैसे मिलते हैं। कितना लाइफ स्पैन होता है एक डैम का? बोलते हैं 60 साल, वो होता है 20 साल। क्यों? सिल्टेशन होता है, डिफंक्ट हो जाते हैं। अमेरिका में एक 1990 से इकोलॉजिकल ग्राउंड पे कई डैम्स को बंद कर दिया गया, खत्म कर दिया, क्योंकि उनको पता था कि इससे पूरी इकोलॉजी खत्म हो रही। एंड देयर लाइफ स्पैन इज वेरी स्मॉल, इट विल लूज इट्स फंक्शनलिटी इन सम टाइम। सो व्हाट इज दैट काइंड ऑफ स्मॉल डैम? बनाइए ना, छोटे डैम बनाइए, क्या दिक्कत है? तो ये है डेवलपमेंट का फंडामेंटल, समझिए। फंडामेंटल ये है, उतना ही लीजिए जिससे कि आने वाले पीढ़ी को। आपको क्या हो रहा है आज? हमारे पूरे देश को, हमारे पूरे विश्व को क्या हो रहा है? क्या क्लाइमेट चेंज क्यों हो रहा है? अंधाधुंध कंक्रीटाइजेशन का नतीजा है। जब कंक्रीट से भर देंगे आप तो क्या होगा? टेम्परेचर बढ़ेगा, है? तो क्या होगा? उसका असर हो रहा है। आज मैं, मेरे पास घर के पास एक छोटा सा इको पार्क डेवलप हुआ है, उसकी बायोडाइवर्सिटी मैं डेली रिकॉर्ड करता हूँ। I am surprised within 10 years, the entire biodiversity has plummeted, especially of insects, and that impacts the biodiversity of birds. ठीक है? तो ये हो रहा है, इसको समझिए कि विकास जो हम कर रहे हैं वो कहीं से ठीक नहीं है। विकास को इको पर्यावरण पारिस्थितिकी के नियमों के हिसाब से करना जरूरी है। आप किसी भी जीव को देखिए ना, कैसे वो अपनी जीवन यापन करता है, वो नहीं नुकसान करता है। पूरी पृथ्वी पर एक ही जीव है, हम भी जीव हैं, बाकी भी जीव है। एक ही जीव है जिसने आज तक कुछ ऐसा नहीं किया जिससे पर्यावरण को या इस पृथ्वी को कोई फायदा हो। हर जीव, मैंने कहा ना, कीड़े मकोड़े जो काम करते हैं वो अपूर्णीय है। यदि वो चले जाए, खाना मिलना बंद हो जाएगा, अनाज नहीं, फ्रूट्स नहीं मिलेंगे। ये सोचिए, रिलेशनशिप सोचिए कि किस तरीके से पृथ्वी चलती है। पृथ्वी कोई मुर्दा चीज नहीं है, ये जिंदा चीज है, ये इज अ लिविंग ऑर्गेनिज्म। यू हैव टू प्रोटेक्ट इट, यू हैव टू अलाउ इट टू फंक्शन। ये सीमेंट कंक्रीट का डेवलपमेंट कोई डेवलपमेंट नहीं है भाई। जितनी जरूरत हो उतना करो ना। क्या जरूरत है? अरे आप जब सांस ही नहीं ले पाएंगे, आप खाना नहीं खा पाएंगे, तो आप क्या कोल्टार खाएंगे? आप कंक्रीट खाएंगे? आप ये जहर का गैस लेंगे, जैसे दिल्ली में लोग को ले रहे हैं, फेफड़े गल गए हैं सबके, हैं? क्या करेंगे आप उसका? तो ये डेवलपमेंट लेके कितने दिन तक रहेंगे? तो ये सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट, ये सब फालतू फजूल बातें करने की जरूरत ही नहीं थी। ये सारे देशों के महामहिम लोग इतने बड़े बड़े कॉन्फ्रेंस करके ये सारी बातें क्यों लेके आए हैं? क्लाइमेट चेंज का प्रोटोकॉल लेके क्यों आ रहे हैं? क्या है एजेंडा है सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट का पूरे वर्ल्ड के लिए, इंडिया का भी है। तो आप वो तो फॉलो कर नहीं रहे हो कहीं से भाई। केवल कागज में खाना पूर्ति करने से डेवलपमेंट ढंग का नहीं हो जाएगा।
सर श्रेयांश, आप इस पे और रिसर्च करो कि सर ने जो बताया कि सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट का मतलब क्या होता है, एंड रिसर्च हाउ वी कैन डू बेटर थिंग्स। यस, वन मोर चाइल्ड है, फातिमा, प्लीज गो अहेड।
So in social media, we see that in Uttarakhand, many trees of like 500 feet trees are cutted. So like, why the government is not taking any action to stop it, or like it is not a very good. I don't think so. It's very good step to cut such big and old trees because they are habitat of many animals. Why the government is doing this?
They have ordered it. They must have some reason for that. They have ordered it, so they will not stop it. है वो आपको वो वहाँ पे खड़े होकर के आंदोलन करना पड़ेगा, जैसे अभी हो रहा है उत्तराखंड में। तो ये वही बता पाएंगे कि वो ऐसा क्यों कर रहे हैं, जब सबको पता है कि क्या होना है। खुद उनके आधिकारिक कागजों में लिखा है सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट करना है, उनका सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट का एजेंडा है। तो फिर सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट कैसे हो रहा है, ये तो वही बता पाएंगे, मैं नहीं बता सकता इसके बारे में।
नहीं, उनका बच्चे का पूछने का आशय ये है सर कि अगर सब जानते हैं कि गलत है तो क्यों नहीं रोक रहे हैं सब।
भाई तो ये तो वही है ना, उनकी बुद्धि पे तरस आता है। और क्या कहूं मैं आपको, लोगों के दिमाग में भर दिया गया कि बड़ा अच्छा हो रहा है ये सारा डेवलपमेंट। ये कंक्रीट सीमेंट का इतना बड़ा उपयोग नहीं है सही। बात मानिए इस चीज को। अरे पूरे भोपाल में पहले मौसम कितना अच्छा था जब हम यहाँ 96 में आए थे। गर्मी में गर्मी शाम को तो लगती नहीं थी, बढ़िया हवा चलती थी, पानी आराम से हमारे इवन सरकारी क्वार्टर्स में भी बाहर फर्शी लगी थी जिसमें कि पानी नीचे परकुलेट हो जाता था। आज हर घर में कंक्रीट है। जो ड्रेनेज है नेचुरल ड्रेनेज पे कॉलोनाइजर को बनाने को दे दिया गया। सरकारी क्वार्टर भी नेचुरल ड्रेनेज पे कई जगह बने हैं। क्या होता है, वाटर लॉगिंग होता है, लोगों की गाड़ियां तैरने लगती हैं कॉलोनीज के अंदर। तो जब हम जानते हैं इन चीजों को फिर भी हम करते हैं। क्यों हो रहा है? आप चले जाइए मद्रास, वहां जाड़े में पानी बहुत गिरता है। अडयार नदी में 2016 में या 15 याद नहीं है, बहुत बड़ी बाढ़ आ गया और वहां पे पूरा एयरपोर्ट डूब गया। सरकारी कॉलोनी डूब गई, प्राइवेट इंक्रोचमेंट्स डूब गए, है ना। क्यों? क्योंकि वो रिवर बेसिन में सरकार ने सब कुछ डेवलप कर दिया। ये तो सबको पता है भाई, है हर जो टाउन प्लानर ये को जाना चाहिए कि रिवर बेसिन का काम क्या है। रिवर बेसिन, है ना, फ्लड प्लेन्स, दे एक्चुअली take the excess water and send it down. It is kind of sponge that takes the excess water and put it back into the streams underground, which gives you the groundwater. So what we have done, we have exploited, used, utilized और मिसयूटिलाइज those areas. तो इसमें क्या हम कहें, अब ये समझने की बात है, सबको समझना चाहिए। जो खुद सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट के डॉक्यूमेंट निकाल रहे हैं उनको ये नहीं समझ आ रहा है, तो मैं तो आश्चर्यचकित हूँ। Yes, I think now this is over. People are getting fed up. So, so
Things are turning around, sir. These children are showing great interest and energy in trying to turn this around. Hopefully, things will. There is light at the end of the tunnel.
Thank you, sir, for this session.
कुछ काम कुछ काम आया होगा उनके, आपको क्या लगता है?
Sir, बहुत बहुत not just knowledgeable but the children get inspired क्योंकि आप केवल पढ़ के नहीं बोल रहे हैं, आपने किया है ये काम, सालों साल किया है, तो you are a model for them to follow for all times.
ठीक है।
Viraj, sir.
Sir, can I close the session, sir? with your
Yes,
permission?
please go ahead.
Sir, thank you for being here. Thank you for enlightening us on the effect of corridor, the importance of habitat, gene pool transfer, and all the schematics and need for study. I would also express my gratitude to the nodal teachers who have ensured presence of all students. And lastly, I would also thank all the students to have attentively heard this session. I now, sir, seek permission to close this session.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Sir, we will keep bothering you in future also.
जी,
मैंने कहा फ्यूचर में और परेशान करेंगे एक आध सेशन के लिए सर आप।
वो मैंने आपको एक वीडियो भेजा, आप उसको भी यूज कर सकते हैं। वो दूसरा है,
जी।
उसमें दोनों चीजें हैं। उसमें कॉरिडोर पे उतना नहीं है, उसमें वो
अच्छा।
है रिलेशनशिप्स, कैसे फंक्शन करता है इकोसिस्टम, उस पे ज्यादा बात है।
जी जी जी, वो हम बच्चों से शेयर कर
Sir,
देंगे
there
सर,
is
तो
even
बच्चे काफी
feedback in
सर।
the chat section. Everybody is thanking you for this informational
Okay,
session.
thanks to them. Okay,
Thank
बाय बाय
you.
सर।
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Thank you. So,
Thank you so much, Viraj sir.
so students of the delegates of the NTCA, I would just take a minute. I will not take bother you for more time. I just want an update for everybody who's available. Have you started working on your micro topics yet, or do you need any assistance from us or any of the mentors or somebody? Just taking a status update. You can open your mic and interact freely if you want.